With the first week of Delve starting to come to a close, I thought it was only fitting that I started to work on my Delve Ultimate Beginner's Guide. My name is Wolfian, and if this is the first time you are joining us for a guide, I like to put Path of Exile in as simple terms as humanly possible to try and open it up to as many people as I can. Show people how great Path of Exile is, and remove some of these scary factors from the game that we all know exist. Now, in this video, I'm going to be covering tons and tons of stuff related to Delve style of content. We're going to be starting off with some of the light stuff first, and then we'll be delving into the darkness-related content later in the video, because I still have to experiment with that stuff in the next day in my time anyways, but what'll be like maybe 10 minutes for you. To start us off, we're going to be covering the topic that you probably came here for in the title, which is how to do, air quotes, infinite delves. This tactic is going to be for players who aren't able to clear higher tier maps. Maybe your build just isn't good enough, maybe you don't have the time to get GG level gear like some of us do who just play for, of course, your enjoyment. We end up with really good gear, and maybe you don't have that kind of time, maybe you don't have those kind of builds, and maybe things just don't line up with getting those types of maps. So how are you able to delve infinitely? Well, quite easily, actually. With a little bit of tactical use of the recreation of instances system, we are able to run a ton of quarries, or not really run, but zone into quarry over and over and over again. And when you do that, there are two voltaxic sulfite node spawns that are right beside the waypoint. Now, the reason that some people are able to go to like depth 600 and things already is they have a full stack of people doing this and feeding them sulfite over and over. They'll get into one that has nodes all around, and they'll invite the people in and that sort of thing. Now, the video you're seeing in the background is me attempting to see how much sulfite I can acquire in 5 minutes of doing this. And I ended up with 230 with quite a few dry spells in between. This means that realistically, if you just sit here and do this, factoring a little bit for RNG, you can get about 3,000 sulfite an hour. Now, diving deeper and deeper down into delves, if we come back to myself here, will start costing you more and more. For me, at the moment, I am at exactly delve 100, which is quite cool that I managed to stop here. But because of this, going like right and left and that sort of thing, depending on how long they are, will cost about 70 to 100 sulfite, depending, of course, on the length of the delve. Now, if you go deeper and deeper, I was looking at content from people who are at the 600 level, and it started to cost them upwards of 200-ish per delve, even for like a medium-sized delve like this. So that's where they start trying to gate you off on content. So this tactic won't work forever, sadly, but it will get you most likely to the point where your build will hit its limit. Especially for the type of player or have the type of gear where you can't push those tier 15 maps, but you just want to see how far you can go. Doing this type of tactic will for sure get you there. It will get you to the point where you can't go any further, and then you can start going left from there or right from there with delves and that sort of thing, and just going for currency and going for enjoyment. You're able to see exactly how far you can go with this type of tactic, and it is how people have reached tier 600 in delve. So, to do a quick little recap, 230 sulfite in 5 minutes, realistically equating for RNG, that is about 3,000 sulfite an hour. That is going to bring us to the end of this section for the infinite delves. Now I'm going to go into covering when you first start off in delve, creating your first character, what you want to do, and some of my basic tips and tricks for you. Alrighty, so when you first start off in delve, you're of course going to start all the way up here, right? Now, you'll notice there is one track going all the way down here. There is a catch-up mechanic in play for delve. This means that you don't have to delve whatsoever until you hit endgame, and where the game dubs that you should start mapping is down here at level 61. So I ended this character at 65 after doing all the acts, so it's not exactly wrong. So around this area you should finish the game and start being able to either do maps or go into the mines if you want to, and as a result you're able to just completely ignore your delves, which is exceptional because they slow you down a ton. When you are leveling, stopping to delve, while it does create a good gameplay loop, will slow your progression down immensely. Do I recommend doing delves from the start? Personally, I would say yes and no. A little bit to get yourself situated, but not enough that you start getting outpushed by the mineshaft itself. You'll see that if I come up here, when I try to do an air quotes delve push, I ended up kind of getting screwed over by Nico's mining machine right here. So all of this extra work that I put in here, yes, it was enjoyable, and yes, I managed to get the bearings with delve itself, ended up just getting kind of pushed through while I was trying to figure out how his mineshaft kind of worked. And once I figured out that it stopped here where you generally start mapping, things started to make a lot more sense. From here you can start making your own path and exploring down through whatever you would like to. Now, with that said, I do have two very basic tactics for you when you first start off and before you even actually get in here. The tactic for when you get in here is to make sure you cap your sulfite, for the reason of he is going to drill quite a bit. He drills on level up, he drills on act completion, that sort of thing. So what that means is that any node that is underneath him while he is leveling will be deleted if you level up during that delve and leave the area. So you want to make sure you're at full capacity. So say for example he's about to delve into a currency node, like he would be here. If this wasn't where he stopped, I would lose this currency node. Say there was a path down from here, right? So before he goes and does that on your next level up, you go across, you get that one, you come down, you say you get the node here, and you go left, you get the currency, you don't miss out on it, right? That's where it starts to become very integral to go in fully capped. There's not much point to going in at, say, like half like I have now. It's not, well, funnily enough, half is worth it. Now, because of doing all that, there's also a little bit more to it. Not only can you save nodes like that, you can get even more value, because if you go into an area and then you zone out of that area, the mine itself shuffles up a little bit. I don't know exactly how, but I think it re-randomizes the area. But because of doing that, all the loot that you have in that area will straight up disappear if you leave that where the crawler is. It's kind of weird to explain, but if you zone out either back to the camp or back to like your hideout or that sort of thing, whatever loot you leave on the ground will 110% disappear. There's no way to get it back. You can't portal out. It literally says portals are disabled. So you need to be very careful with doing that sort of thing. So you want to clear as much as possible, and then you can decide, you can even run your way back up the path, back to the loot you missed, if what you got wasn't worth it to you. So in that department, you want to go in with as much as humanly possible. Now, after you've gone into delves and you start getting Azerite, you can start doing some upgrades with it. But one thing I want to cover before we get into the upgrades section is actually the Azerite nodes themselves. If you see some of these nodes right here, you can see one glaring difference. If you can't, don't worry, I didn't either for the first little while. It is very, very obvious, right? This one is a small node, this one is a larger node. And how do you tell that? Well, that's a 1, and that's a 2. It actually took me, like, until I hit mapping to realize that. I knew it was just a bigger node, so I assumed it had more in it. And then I realized that that was a 1 and that was a 2 in Roman numerals, and I felt like a very, very dumb boy. So, be very happy I'm telling you that now, as opposed to figuring out later on and going, why do I have no Azerite? when you've only been doing level 1 Azerite nodes. Watch out for that, because it did end up getting me. Now, when you get some of your Azerite, you can start upgrading your crawler and your voltaxic generator, which, if we come right here, you can start doing just that. Now, my recommendation for early upgrades is to get 1 capacity and then cover everything else. So, get your capacity, then upgrade your darkness resistance, then upgrade your light radius. And why do I say to do that? Because once you upgrade something, its price scales massively, especially after the very first upgrade. The price to buy the second tier of sulfite capacity can get you both a darkness resistant upgrade and a light radius upgrade. So make sure that you grab those two before you go for capacity. Now, one other thing with today's patch, they made it so that this is actually account wide. Now, one thing that's not account wide is voltaxic sulfite, which kind of sucks, so you have to go and re-accrue it yourself. But what this also means is that, going back to a little bit earlier, with going in fully capped and being able to ignore it, being able to ignore the delve itself while leveling, means that if you upgrade your capacity to as high as humanly possible, you can run through things on a new character and level extremely quickly without feeling like, okay, my sulfite is capped, I'm wasting this now. Because that's what ends up happening when you overcap your sulfite and you don't go to delve immediately. Any nodes you get, you start getting this kind of internal feeling like, alright, I'm wasting this. This kind of sucks. It does create a nice gameplay loop of go map for a little while, and then the moment you get bored of maps, you're pretty much coming in to do some delves. And then you do some delves that you enjoy, and then you go back and you do some maps, which feel kind of fresh again because you just did a bunch of delves, right? Creates a nice gameplay loop, and it's the same thing during the acts, which is that you go do some act content, then you come into delves, do a few delves. By the time you're done that, the acts feel a little bit, not so much fresher, but you can bear doing some more acts again. So you go do those, and you come back, and it creates that type of gameplay loop. However, it does tremendously end up slowing you down, which is not really spectacular. It slowed me down quite a bit during the first few days, because I wanted to see the interactions with delve and that sort of thing, and it made my leveling pretty much a snail's pace. Now, upgrades to flares and dynamite we'll be delving into, pun included, in the latter half of the video, because I haven't actually done much darkness delving. I'm going to be cutting back to this after we cover all the light stuff to tomorrow, in my time anyways, to give you my input on the darkness clearing and raiding and that sort of thing, because I've generally just been sticking to the light side content. But we are not done just yet. We've covered just about anything, or just about everything, but I do have a few more notes for when you're actually in the delves themselves. I have some information on these things that are killing you extremely quickly. Path of Exile's patented "what the fuck, I'm dead" style of one-shot, making the game harder mentality is very, very prevalent in delve. Sometimes you've taken darkness damage in the light. I've definitely done that, and you'll see that coming up in a stream highlight very soon. It's a bit fucking stupid, but things happen. But what is normally one-shotting you is some of the enemies you don't end up seeing. There's a bunch of little dogs, I guess you could say, and they have a very, very lethal fire breath. If you don't kill them or freeze them or that sort of thing, they will mess you up very quickly. The enemies doing that fire breath would also do a tail spin, and a lot of enemies seem to have these types of abilities, and while they're pretty similar in nature, they do a metric shit ton of damage. If they all stack up on you and you have no way out, you are pretty much dead. So you're going to need to be very, very careful dealing with these types of enemies, because they can kill you very fast. If at least, even just having one of them that's an elite start hitting you, if he has like a power charge or a frenzy charge, kiss that health bar goodbye. Stack a little bit of darkness damage in there, and you're probably not going to make it, mate. You're probably not going to make it. Now, that's just for what's one-shotting you. There is a system in place called EMPs that people really don't like. But what if I told you there's a way that I quite literally never get EMP'd? And if I do, it's probably once per 25 delves or so. And the way that I do that I don't actually have any footage of what I'm about to tell you, because you have to catch a cast animation for an EMP. This is extremely rare to find, to be able to actually cancel it yourself. The enemies who do an EMP, which are also these dogs, will have some sort of cast animation to it. People have gotten EMP'd with just basic spiders and that sort of thing, so looking for this animation is pretty much not physically possible. Looking at the dogs, they do like they rear up on their hind legs and will do like a howl type of thing, and that'll cut out the lights of the crawler. Now, the way that you can make it so you don't end up getting EMP'd is by playing a build that either kills things extremely quickly and doesn't have to worry about stuff being able to cast this, because it does have a wind-up time of at least like a second or two. So if you can kill them fast enough that they don't even get a chance to cast this in the first place, you don't have to worry about EMPs. But in my build's case, playing a nice set of Vol Ground Slam, I have access to on-demand stuns, because I'm using Vol Ground Slam quite a bit with my build, which I'll be putting a build guide out in a few days. Gotta plug myself, you know how it is. I'm able to stun chain a lot of packs very easily, and most packs I end up hitting with at least one Vol Ground Slam, either when I enter the pack or when I leave the pack. I'll leave them with a Vol Ground Slam. And not only is that killing stuff extremely quickly, it's also stunning it. And Vol Ground Slam is a guaranteed stun, 110% chance it even stuns bosses. Which means that if I catch them in the animation of casting their EMP, they get stunned, and then either EMP goes on cooldown or they try and cast it again. And by the time they try to cast it again, they've died, most likely. And as a result, that's how I just don't get EMP'd, is you can either kill them extremely quickly, or you can CC them. So if you're playing, say, like this build, you can stun them to death. If you're playing one of the more meta builds, you can freeze them to death. That's probably the best option that you have, because that's the only other option for like hard CC. Shock and ignite and poison and that sort of thing won't get the job done. And that is why most people are saying they hate EMPs, because playing a build that doesn't either kill shit in a flash or permanently stun lock it while you kill it will get you EMP'd quite a bit. Now, I got lucky with my build choice of choosing a build that does stun. If I didn't have one, or I was playing, say, Cyclone, for example, I would probably be having a very bad time in Delves right now. So a build reroll may be in order for some of you looking to push deeper down to have at least some form of CC. Or maybe even like, I don't know, a castle damage taken Ice Nova. May not work, that may just be me talking up my ass, but it could help you if you manage to get a crit and get a freeze if you're playing like a crit type of build. Just a few tactics, and you can take that however you want to, but I hope it helps you not get EMP'd and die instantly as much. Also on the topic of EMPs is that they buffed flares with a recent patch to make them more easily throwable and not like double throw and not mess up as much as you'd think they would, or as much as they did previously. So if you get EMP'd, you can actually throw down a flare and pretty much survive. But as I said, you play the right build and you can pretty much negate EMPs. And finally, one last little tip that I have for you before we start going into the darker side of this video, pun fully intended, is that if you find Nico, you're able to invite him to your hideout. You can't do it from this screen, but after he mines up a node, you can click on him and invite him to your hideout. Now, what does that do, you may ask? It makes it so you can delve straight from your hideout. There's a few little tricks you can do. If you can click on him and go to View Subterranean Chart, you can plot your delves quite literally from your hideout. You don't need to go to the mine area or anything like that. But if you don't feel like clicking on him and going View Chart, they've implemented a new system, which we're all hoping gets implemented with the Masters rework in 3.5, that if you control click on him, like we were doing to open up the quarry menu, we can just go straight to it. We don't have to click on him, we don't have to go Subterranean Chart, you can just control click him. And aside from things bugging out a little bit, he will open up the chart for you. Apparently a little bit buggy. That's the first time I've had that happen, I promise you. Let's get into the darker side of Delve. In what has been a very fast fade away for you, I have realized I've been playing Delve quite wrong. Sticking with just clearing the light style of content in Delve isn't exactly optimal, and those of us who do that type of playstyle and are too afraid to venture off into the dark will start to realize our returns are pretty shit. We're not getting any fossils, we're not getting any resonators or that sort of thing, and we're not stumbling across any of the cool type of crafting stuff. And that's because they've hidden it all out in the darkness when it comes to Delve and the way they hide their loot. Now, today I have done a ton of darkness delving and experimentation, and I have a few tips for you that will make your life very easy. You'll be seeing me do darkness runs in the background, and I believe I may do a very quick one live for you to showcase what I'm kind of thinking of when I do these darkness runs. Now, the biggest tip that I'm going to have for you is that the lower down you go, of course, the higher or the lower your darkness resist gets, which means that if you're very low down or you're at your pushing rank, going out into the darkness will pretty much instantly kill you. It is not advised in the slightest. But however, you can start going up in tiers in your list here. If we pop back to me very quickly, if you start going up your list, you'll be able to change what your darkness resist is. If we hit H and go to our Delve panel here, we'll see I'm at minus 105% at depth 123. Now, however, if I were to go into the subterranean chart here, go all the way back up, and say go and do this 24, or not even go and do it, but just go to this 24. If we hit H and go back to that panel again after the loading screen, we'll see I'm now at 75% resistances here. This is absolutely key and absolutely integral to being able to do darkness runs. And allow me to explain why, which is that doing darkness runs for fossils and resonators doesn't matter what level it's on. All that matters is that you're able to survive and explore in very good paths. So long as you're able to do that sort of thing, you can get a very good return on your fossils for flares. Essentially, you don't have to care about what tier the thing is on, because fossils and resonators don't scale with item level like everything else does. So you'll be killing level 23 enemies, which is exceptional because you get flasks back very fast, but all of the gear you get will pretty much just be throwaways. The only stuff that I recommend even looking at is jewelry, and if you get a like a lost armor or a forgotten weaponry, just kind of leave it and don't worry about clicking on it. All you're really going for is forgotten currency or forgotten wealth, resonators, fossils, and sometimes jewelry, but jewelry is debatable depending on how it rolls, but it's worth picking up if you're there, because why not? Now, when you're out delving, like doing these sorts of darkness delves, there's a few things you want to keep in mind. First of all is how many flares you have and your maximum flare stack. You'll see right now that I have a maximum of 7 flares. Now, the thing about this is that it will vary how many you need for what you want to do and how good your RNG is. The run you're most likely seeing in the background as I talk over this right now will be the one where I managed to get 3 flare caches in the same run. This means that I can effectively go for triple the amount of time that I would normally. Because if you get a flare cache and you space it out well enough, you can use that to either fully refill your flares or maybe get an extra 2 or 3 depending how far you have to go. This will give you insurmountable value, because you can start doing really long clears in the darkness and just looking around for stuff before you hit the invisible wall. There is actually an invisible wall when you do darkness runs. I don't know why, I don't know how, but essentially if you're clearing on your map, when you start to hit the dark part here on the right and left sides, you won't be able to pass any farther. I mean, it's understandable, you have to actually clear that point, but it kind of sucks that you can't just go on into the darkness for as long as you can survive. But, you know, that's kind of how it is. So when you hit that invisible waypoint, you want to be very careful in what you do. Now, the thing about going into these sorts of delves with all of your flares and stuff is what happens when you run out. Why would you do this on hardcore? You'll just die. Well, yeah, you would die, but you can just character select screen, and that solves all of your problems. It can put you right back to whatever town you were in, and then you just go right back in, refill your flares, and you are good to go. Now, the thing about this is not only is it really fast-paced, really high intensity, and just all around pretty awesome, it also extends your time in delve. Not only is it really enjoyable, you're getting more value for your delve, especially if you go for like an Azerite delve while pushing, because that means you can start getting upgrades, you can buy more flares, that sort of thing. So long as you get at least one Azerite delve while you're pushing and pushing downwards, you're able to have enough flares to at least go maybe 2 to 3 darkness runs and see what you can get before you have to go back to doing mapping or running quarry or that sort of thing. And that is exceptional for the longevity and enjoyment of delve. A lot of people have been complaining that it was, you go in, you, you go in, you clear it, you go back to maps, you have to map, and then you go back to the enjoyable stuff. As well as if you start going backwards along the cables, you're pretty much going to get fucked up as well, because if you're not standing directly on the cables, you start taking darkness damage and dying. That mechanic is a little bit fucky, and I feel like that needs to be touched on a little bit, but I digress. So going out into the darkness on levels that you're trying to push at is pretty much a death sentence. So where do you start doing delves and that sort of thing? As I was talking about earlier, you go up to the higher tiers. That makes it so that your darkness resist is at 75%. This means you are excruciatingly tanky, and if you're playing a build like mine that has a shit ton of health regeneration, you're able to survive for a very long time, and with the right flare spacing and flare reuse, you're able to get some massive value. You've seen me do it in the background, but I'm going to go and run an actual live one right now. I'll just show you how I choose these things, and we'll just go from there. So let's go into our Voltaic generator, if we come back to me, and let's craft ourselves a ton of flares, craft ourselves another dynamite, and let's hit another darkness resist upgrade. Why not? Make my life a little easier, and we can go a little bit deeper. So, of course, as I said before, the item level doesn't really matter. So what we want to look for is long runs between the nodes here. So like something like this is really good, but the problem where it starts to fall off is it's really good and then really complete trash. Because you have two really long ones. Let me see if I can find one here for you. If you have two really long ones, like say here to here to here, that's perfect, because everywhere in here is an off area. So if you go in there, you can blow up, like, you might be able to find walls, you might be able to find loot in there, that sort of thing. But an area like this doesn't give much space for those side areas to spawn. So looking around, you want to find one that is optimal like that, but is also in a level that you can do at 75% resist. So something like going left here, and then up here again will be exceptional, because of course it's long runs. So let's see if we can do that. Let's pop into this level and look at what our resist is in the panel and decide if we want to do this one. After our loading screen, let's see, 75% at 39, okay. So keep a little snapshot of the map here. We want to go left and then up. Once we hit the camp here, we want to go straight up, left, straight up, and then we can start going left and see what we get. So let's pop right into it. Pop our Quicksilver Flask and get rolling. Now, I have a severe disadvantage that I'm playing Berserker, which means that if I start killing enemies, I'm going to be gaining Berserker stacks, which degenerates my health more. So I'm not going to be opting to do that. We're going to pop our first flare, because I was getting up to 70 stacks there. So now we're going to go straight up from here, because we know exactly where we are. So keep in mind I have 6 more flares now. Let's leap across this. We want to make sure that I don't end up desyncing, because that does happen with Leap Slam. Lost armaments. There's a little bit of desync right there, sadly. Leap our way through here. If you have a sort of like phase run type of ability or something like that, you'll be ballin'. I only have Leap Slam, so you make do. So we're going to make our way up here. I had to drop a second flare there because I did get stuck. Kind of sucks. Let's see if we can get anything over here. Anything? There's something. We got Abandoned resonator cache. There we go. There's resonators. Let's grab these. Let's actually kill this pack so I can get flask charges back. Let's wait on my flare because I have to wait on my rage to go down. Because of course I am a berserker. It will cost me some degeneration. But make sure to be ready because once this flare pans out, we need to get going again. Here our Quicksilver. Hit my war cry in a big pack. There's armor. We don't care about armor because we're trying to find other stuff. Azerite doesn't really matter as much. Now I can sustain myself a little bit in the current situation. It all depends on how many flares I get, how much stuff's around me, and how well I play during this. So we can pop out here, check this. Nothing here. Not really great. Let's check down here. Keep my war cry ticking. Check left. Go back up. There might be something here. Check this. Lost wealth. Here we go. Regal. Currency. Let's just slam that real fast. There's 38 stacks, which kind of sucks for me because I'm playing Berserker, but it's whatever. That's just a problem with my build. I still have 2 flasks. All right, here we go. Money in the bank. I don't think I should have used that right off the bat there, but oh well. Okay, here's a wall. Dynamite that. Kill all this shit. Run in, get that. That's trash. Use the flare to reset myself. Use it to reset myself again so I didn't miss anything. Start coming up here. Hit the war cry on a giant pack. Anything up here? Resonator stash. Flare this. Smash that. Okay, this is like exactly what I want for a video. This is perfect. Alright, we're gonna wait out the Berserk again. Alright, you see what I kind of mean though, right? This is just off of one pathing. If you hit V as well, it'll show you exactly where you are. So if we close out of that, we can start going back to running yet again. Hit a war cry there. We know that we're going up still, so we know kind of where we need to go. 56 stacks is pretty average for what I can manage at the moment. About 70 stacks if I have no Berserk, but that's about as good as we're gonna get. Alright, this is the Azerite vein, so we want to go up from here. Nah, I can't go up there, never mind. I just hit my flasks twice. See what I mean though? They're nice and fast paced. You gotta be extremely quick. Alright, here's the invisible wall I was talking about earlier. So watch out for that. So that means that we're on the left and we took a wrong turn somewhere. So let's try going over there instead. Let's go down here, down here, down here. Go up through here. Lost wealth again. 2 chaos. Scour. Oh, we got 1 flare left, so let's push. Actually, I think this is where we call. Let's check up in here. If there's nothing up in there, we'll call it because that was where the invisible wall was. So we can check down here really quickly. I saw something there, I think. No? Alright, and that's the last invisible wall. So let's character select and see what we got out of that. That was actually a perfect demonstration for the video. So that was absolutely fantastic. We didn't get any fossils, but we did get an ass ton of resonators. Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 resonators, 2 chaos, 3 scour, a regal, transmute. I mean, all around, I would say that's really good. But the thing is, right, let's keep in mind we got 2 resonators here, right? Or 2 boxes of resonators. Either of those could have been fossils. Behind the dynamite wall that we got is normally fossils. We got kind of robbed with it being an armaments. So with even better RNG on that run, we could have came out with potentially 3 sets of fossils, right? Every single spawn that I showed you is randomized each time. It could be a fossil, it could be a resonator, it could be jewelry, it could be wealth. You kind of know what I mean. But that is going to bring us to the end of my Ultimate Delve Beginner's Guide. That is pretty much the perfect showcase I could ever ask for when it comes to showing off Delve and the Darkness tactics. But that is going to bring us to the end. I do hope you guys enjoyed, learned something, and I hope you're having a grand old time with Delve. I most definitely am, and after realizing how much fun those Darkness runs are, and describing them in stream, describing what I'm doing while I'm doing them, it's so much fun. It adds an entire extra layer to Delve that you 100% didn't realize was there. if you don't start going out into the darkness and messing around with that sort of thing. So to quickly recap before I take off here, 75% darkness resist. Don't do darkness stuff at the level that you're pushing at. You will pretty much instantaneously die. And then look around for lost wealth at lower tiers, the resonator stash, and your fossil stash as well. Look for those three things. Ignore pretty much anything else. Maybe jewelry. Maybe go for that one. And the higher you upgrade your darkness resist, the higher that you can push down on the list here with retaining 75% resistances. You want to retain that 75% resist to minimize as much damage taken as possible. Very good builds for doing darkness runs are ones that use phase run and have a metric shit ton of life, or just have some way to phase through enemies, because you saw me leap slamming and sometimes I would desync and teleport back a little bit. But those runs are very high intensity and very, very enjoyable. Hope you guys enjoyed and learned something. And as always, take care, lads. So